everyone. My name is Sami Sureshwala. I am the host of my new podcast called The Blueprint. And in this podcast, we will be interviewing industry professionals and learning about what their job is really like. Today's guest is someone whose voice you've heard 1,000 times, whether it's a lights out in the season opener or a last lap thriller in Silverstone. He's been the soundtrack to some of the greatest moments in Formula One history, but beyond the mic, beyond the commentary, beyond the box, there's a person with a story of his own. From the Disney movie planes to pit lanes, the lead star of Sky Sports F1, please welcome the one and only David Croft.
Hello. How are you?
It is absolutely surreal hearing your voice. I mean, we listen to you, me and my dad listen to you every day on the TV, every weekend on the TV, and seeing you here in person, it is, I just cannot believe this.
Well, I can't believe it either. We didn't even know each other. We didn't know we existed until 2 days ago when you sent a speculative message via social media and thought, he'll never see that.
Yep.
Well, I did, and thank you very much for asking me.
Yep. No worries. Thank you so much for coming on this. It's such a big opportunity for me, and having you as my first guest, I don't think there could be a better first guest for me.
As long as I'm not your last guest, we'll be doing okay.
No. All right. So the first segment is called From Fan to the Mic, how to get into sports broadcasting and journalism. Let's start at the very beginning. What first sparked your love for motorsport? Was it a driver, a race, or something totally random?
Murray Walker, without doubt. I used to listen to Murray Walker commentating and reporting from far-flung destinations with a great passion and enthusiasm and a way with words like no other. And I loved the way Murray made me feel when the Grand Prix was on. You know, that the cars were doing incredible things. The drivers were the best of the best. And, you know, the shock in his voice when a crash happened or, you know, someone retired because a tyre blew or an engine failed or whatever. That was what sparked my interest. And along with Murray, there were other commentators as well that I really loved. And I wanted to be a sports commentator. Formula One came a lot later in the journey, but I knew from an early age that I wanted to commentate on sport. What better way to earn a living than watching sport and talking about it, yeah?
Yeah, it sounds like the dream. And coming from me, I've seen the races of Murray Walker. I've heard his commentary. And I think you are the perfect successor, in my opinion. I think your commentary is amazing, and I don't think there's a single person who doesn't love your commentary.
Well, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you for that. And yeah, I've taken a bit of how Murray used to approach it, but I've tried to make it my own.
Yep.
And I don't. People say, "Oh, you're the new Murray Walker." That is a huge compliment, and truly, truly gorgeous that people think that. But no one will ever be Murray. No one will be a new Murray because he was so good. He was so iconic, and to me, will always be the voice of Formula One. Yeah. Now, obviously, to people like yourself, I am the voice because I've been your voice all the way through growing up. It was interesting. I was speaking to Paul Aaron yesterday, the Alpine reserve driver, and I've not really had a chance to meet Paul at all yet. And he came over and we talked. I said, "Oh, hi, by the way, I'm Crofty." And he went, "Yeah, I know who you are." I went, "Well, I know who you are as well." He went, "Yeah, but you don't have to introduce yourself." I said, "Well, I kind of do because we've not really had a chance to chat much." So hopefully Paul will be coming into the commentary box after his FP1 session later in the year. Because as I said to him, we have a really good track record. Yeah. Anyone who's been in the Sky F1 commentary box for a practice session goes on to get a race seat.
Oh, actually?
Yeah, Oscar Piastri, Alex Albon, George Russell, Lando Norris. They have all, Jack Aitken, you know, was in there before, and Jack Doohan as well. They've all come in for a little practice session commentary, and it's our claim to fame now. And no one's taking that away from us.
100% guarantee to a seat.
100% guarantee. Apart from Felipe Drugovich, but we're still hopeful.
Hopefully soon. And you know, once you knew you were passionate about F1, how did you go about, you know, getting into that profession? Was it university, A-levels? How did you get into it?
Yeah, obviously that is the way you want me to say yes to that, don't you? Because you're going to go to university, you're going to do A-levels. You are the perfect student.
I want the honest truth.
I wasn't the perfect student. Okay. I really wasn't. And There are many ways to get into to what I'm doing now, but I didn't go to university. I barely got an A level because I wanted to work.
Yep.
And I just didn't enjoy school and didn't enjoy college, and I probably should have gone to university, but you know, would my life have turned out any better? I don't know, and I probably think not, to be honest. But I was working in the theatre as a publicity officer, which I've managed to blag my way into because I was a stagehand before at the theatre. And a very good friend of mine got a job as sports editor of the local newspaper. And he asked me to write about the local football team because he knew I wanted to get into sports journalism, and I had dreams of being a commentator. And from that kind of lowly 300 words every week about the team, here I am today. And it's been a case of working my way through various rungs on various ladders, trying to prove at all times that I could do the job, and learn at all times as well. I've had many people teach me along the years, you know, how to talk into a microphone, how to express yourself, how to look into a camera, how to do voice pieces, how to edit, how to produce a show, how to present a show, how to commentate. You know, that so many people have helped me down the years. But my training ground has always been on air, be it recorded or be it live. So no room for error, as it were, and learn from your mistakes pretty quickly. And always say yes to everything that comes your way. Because if you don't say yes, you'll kick yourself that you have turned down an opportunity. So I got an opportunity to work for the BBC as a full-time sports journalist when I was doing a lot of freelance work and working in the theatre. And I got the opportunity to have a month at the BBC. That was my big break. Here's a full-time job. It's a month's contract. And so I had to leave the theatre to go and work for local radio, and it was a decision I made in a split second. Because if I hadn't have done it, I wouldn't be here today, and I'd have been kicking myself that I turned down the opportunity to go another rung on the ladder.
I think that was the best decision that you made for sure. I mean,
as for Formula One, so I was working up the ladders, and I was working for national radio in the BBC, at the BBC, and in a bar in Vegas. A very good friend of mine, Jason Swales, who was the producer of Formula One for BBC Radio, said, you should audition to be a commentator. And I hadn't really thought about F1 to specialise. I was doing football, I was doing darts as a commentator, but I hadn't thought about F1. And I said, well, why me? He said, you've got a perfect voice for it. You like the sport, you're a fan, and we need a commentator next year. So you're not going to get the job just because I say so, but audition and show us what you can do. So I had to make up a lap of an opening lap at Monza off the top of my head for an audition, and got the job, which was incredible.
That's amazing. I mean, that's I think your step up to Formula One, I think your whole story is inspirational, and I think nowadays it's a bit difficult to get a job without a degree.
Yeah.
But
it isn't. It isn't. I think in the industry that I'm in, obviously a degree helps. I'm not going to say to anyone, don't go to university. Pursue your studies. But there are so many platforms now that you can make your voice be heard. This podcast, for instance, that really weren't there. When I was starting, there's so many different types of media platform. You don't necessarily need to go straight into radio or television.
Right.
What you're doing is fabulous.
Thank you.
Because you're bit by bit learning your craft as a presenter and a conversationalist as well. And it will stand you in great stead. It really will. And I hope the podcast is a massive success.
I hope so. I think with you as a first guest, I think it's
it'll only go downhill from here when people realize how dull I am. Trust me.
Okay, and let's say there's a 16-year-old out there who is set on getting into sports presenting. What do you think they could do right now if they're still in school, maybe a project on the side? What could they do to help themselves get into that field?
Well, this for starters, find a sport, find a niche, find your environment, and find something that no one else is doing as well. Come at it a different way. Don't try and be like everybody else. find a new angle, and get yourself heard, but also try and get experience from people who are in the job already. And if you agree and want to volunteer at a local radio station, local TV station, local newspaper, I'm sure if you're good enough, there are ways that you'll be taken on to just to go and learn your craft. I used to go to the local radio station on a Friday after I finished work at the theatre. I'd do 4 hours unpaid work, just learning how to do the job. And without that, I wouldn't have been able to make the next move up the ladder. So it's basically just it's learning, being creative, finding a niche, and being yourself, and not being afraid to take constructive criticism as well, because that's there to try and help you.
Okay, and the last question, which I think I'm the most excited for, is you've lent your voice to everything from darts to football to F1 video games, and even played Lofty Crofty in Disney's planes.
Yeah, it was an airship.
How do you adapt your commentary style for such different settings? And was there one that felt totally out of your comfort zone?
So I once commentated on the World Free Running Championships.
What's that?
What's free? Do you know parkour?
Yeah, parkour.
So free running's like parkour, but it's different, right?
Right.
So free running is getting from A to B in a creative manner, and parkour is exploring the space.
Okay.
Without necessarily getting from A to B, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I hope if there's any parkour and free runners that are watching this, I hope I've got that right. But I found myself in a commentary box with a guy called Sticky, legend, loved him, commentating on free running. I knew nothing about free running until I sat down with Sticky and started to ask questions. And by the end of it, I'm a proper expert on that. But it's fabulous. You know, I think it's an incredible sport. I really do. And it was a real privilege to be doing it. But that's taking yourself out your comfort zone. You know, because it's live and you broadcast live on television. There's no safety net. If I get it wrong, you know, then everyone's going to hear that. And I like that sort of challenge. So how do you adapt? I don't know. You just kind of do, but you make it your own. As for Planes, the Disney film, I had a really good voice director with that. Who I said to him, have you done this sort of thing before? And he's like, yeah, I've done it a few times, Crafty. I said, in what? He said, I was Robin Williams' voice coach in Aladdin. I went, right, I'm in really good hands here today then. But that was a lot of fun, you know, to be asked to do that. I didn't tell my kids that I was doing it. I thought I'd surprise them. I thought I'd surprise them and take them to the cinema to see the film, and then they'd hear my voice. But they went to the cinema a week beforehand, and my voice came up in the trailer. So the secret was out, sadly. But they were really chuffed that their dad was in a Disney film.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And what do you think about the name Lofty Crofty?
Well, Lofty Crofty was so a very good friend of mine. Is a gentleman called Lee Jury who works for Disney, and he's quite high up in the marketing world in Disney, and he'd seen this opportunity to get me into the film, and he came up with Lofty Crofty. So it wasn't me. Lee was the man behind that, and apparently it was at that time the only time Disney had created a character name that was the same name as the person that was doing the voice.
Oh, right.
So it was a bit of a first on that one for an animated movie. And every Christmas it gets shown on the television, and every Christmas I sit down and watch it because it's still so much better than Cars.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I think that's debatable. I think
I'm a big Lightning McQueen fan.
Yeah. And I heard that you're also going to be featured in the F1 movie.
Yes, that is true. Martin Brundle and myself, completely typecast. We're the commentators.
Yep.
And I'd like to tell you everything about that movie, but I'm sworn to secrecy. All I would say is the idea was to create the most authentic racing movie, and I think they've done that very, very well. And Lewis Hamilton has been working as a producer on it. It's the racing scenes that I've seen and commentate on are incredible.
Yep.
You're going to love it. You are. And I tell you how, I can tell you one little story. As I said, Lewis has been producing it, and he was watching it a few weeks ago and said, oh no, stop a minute. So they stopped the film. I went, Lewis, what's wrong? He said, you need to change that bit. You've got this as the third gear corner.
Oh.
It says 3 on the dash. It's a second gear corner. So we need to get it right.
Oh, wow.
And that's the level of detail
that's amazing
that's gone into this film.
Yeah, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of F1 fanatics poking at the film, but
I mean, it's Hollywood. It will have a Hollywood plot line to it as well. It's been testing really well. The audience feedback so far has been superb. I still think I'm the only person in Formula One who hasn't met Brad Pitt yet.
Oh.
Even Karun Chandhok has met Brad Pitt, and I haven't yet. So I'm hoping I'll get to shake hands with him at the premiere.
Okay, thank you for your advice on how to get into sports broadcasting. Now, for the second segment...
There's one more thing.
Yep.
And this is really important.
Yep.
Don't take no for an answer. If someone says no, find a way to help them say yes.
Yep.
Because there will be lots of people that will turn you down for things that you think you're good enough to do.
Yep.
And don't take that as the end. Take that as the start of your ability to improve and change their opinion.
Yeah, that's good. Now, for segment 2, it is Crofty off the grid, the man behind the mic. When you're not at the racetrack, where are you most likely to be?
Airport lounge, on a plane. To be honest, Heathrow is my second home.
Yeah, you got a premium VIP access there.
Do you know what? Even the guy sweeping the floor at Heathrow know my name now. Now, what am I doing? I like to spend a bit of time at home. To be fair,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking at the end of a triple header.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't been home for some time now.
Yeah.
Grass needs cutting. You know, I'm sure my wife has got a whole heap of jobs for me at home. I like to spend some time with my friends. I go and watch West Ham. I'm a West Ham season ticket holder, which is why I get miserable sometimes. And to be fair, we have at least won a trophy in your lifetime, which is nice. When I first started supporting West Ham, I was 9, and then I had to wait till I was 52 for the next trophy that we won.
It's
so
like Ferrari and their world championships.
yeah, I mean, look, they're on a 17-year wait for a trophy at the moment, which is the longest in their history. I mean, West Ham were really, really extending that one. So I'm hoping it won't be another, 43 years, because I might be the oldest person in the ground when we do that. So, spend time with the family, watch West Ham. I like to go to music gigs. I'm a big music fan. I love my heavy metal.
Yeah.
There are many genres I like, but I'm a big heavy metal fan.
Yeah.
And when I can combine F1 and heavy metal, it's brilliant. There's a lot of bands for whom they're big F1 fans, and I've got to know the bands quite well through our love of F1, and that's really cool. A very good friend of mine who is the lead guitarist in a band called Periphery, Misha Mansour, who's a proper petrol head, and we've been talking now for about 3 years, and he came over to the UK at the start of this year. It's the first time we've met in person. We kind of met on WhatsApp through a friend, and he came over, and I went to the gig. If you've not heard Periphery, they're kind of prog metal, progressive metal. Gent is the genre.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
They really are. They were with a band called Spirit Box, who were also phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we had a night at the gig, a sellout gig at Ali Pali, but then we also went to Red Bull. I took him to Red Bull for a tour, so he could actually see a Formula One factory. So we were kind of mashing up, our love of cars, music, F1, and all things around that. And that was really nice, and I just spending time with spending time with the people I love is so important, because you have to have that balance. I will dedicate myself to this job, and I have no problem with the travelling and no problem with the amount of races I do.
Yeah.
But when I'm not at a racetrack, I just need to switch off a little bit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And be there for the people that support you and need you as well.
I completely agree. And you spoke a bit about football, and we're here in Saudi Arabia. Football is the most popular sport, and I have to ask the
You
question.
got the World Cup coming, right?
Yeah, I'm personally I'm not much of a football fan, but I think a lot of the viewers will be, and I need to ask, Ronaldo or Messi?
Ronaldo or Messi? I give it to Messi.
All right, okay, you've heard it here from Crofty. Messi, he is a Messi fan.
Yeah, mainly though because it is my favourite dad joke of all time, and my kids are going to hate me when they see this. They'll be like, "Dad, you're telling this joke again. Why did the footballer tidy up his bedroom? Because it was Messi." It's my favourite dad joke of all time.
And for reference, my dad is sitting in the back and he laughed. So
yeah, see, your dad got it.
So yeah, it's a good dad joke. Okay, and what's one moment in your career that made you think, I've made it?
I try not to think that.
Yeah.
Because if you think you've made it, then what comes afterwards is only going to go downhill, right?
Mm.
So I don't think I've made it at all. I think as and when I decide, and hopefully I decide that I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing, that's when you know you've made it.
Yep.
But there are many occasions when I feel massively privileged to be doing what I'm doing, and to feel massively lucky to be doing what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm just in a position whereby all the hard work and all those nights that you sacrifice in the early years, when your friends are saying, come out, come and have some fun, and you'll go, no, I'm working, I'm going to go and do this at the local radio station or whatever. There are a lot of moments that make all that worthwhile.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of hard work in this game at all. And you work so many hours to be an overnight success or whatever, and you have to have that dedication. But look, every time I open the commentary box door and look out over the harbour in Monaco at the world's most expensive floating car park, that you're right in the thick of, you think, that there are definitely worse ways to earn a living, and I'm definitely the luckiest man on the planet. And it's something about being at the Monaco Grand Prix. You wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world than there. Even though on the Friday in Monaco this year, two of my very favourite bands, Skindred and Those Damn Crows, are playing in my hometown of Stevenage at the Stevenage Football Club, where I started off my journalistic career. And, I know that I could get backstage passes, and I know I could hang out with a band, and I know I could fulfill all my rock and roll dreams in one night. No, I still want to be in Monaco.
That says a lot. That says a lot about the Monaco Grand Prix. I think maybe me and my family should go for that race.
You should go for that race. Yeah, your dad's not laughing now because he's realised that we've just committed him to quite an expensive weekend. But no, you should. And the thing about Monaco is, look, it might be a little more, shall we say, or a little less thrilling than some other races. And the order might not change very much. And it is all about qualifying and getting track position. But the cars should not be doing what they're doing on those streets. Yeah. The skill of the drivers to keep the cars out of the barriers, more often than not. The way that F1, integrates itself into a venue that shouldn't really be hosting a Grand Prix is absolutely incredible. And seeing is falling in love with, quite frankly. And I always love the Monaco Grand Prix. And yes, it is not going to give you the overtakes that you'll get in Jeddah or the overtakes you get in Bahrain, but it is going to give you something a little bit different. Yeah. And we got 2 pit stops this year as well.
Yeah, it's mandatory,
minimum.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So who knows how that might change things up.
And you've been the voice for many people, all the weekends. But has there been a voice for you that's guided you, in life?
Wow, my mum was very much a supporter. When I was younger, and sadly she died when I was 19, and that's something I don't think you ever really get over. But I always try and celebrate what she stood for and her values, and try and live the way that she would be proud of. My dad, has been the sort of man in my life that's never that's never said don't do it. Has always said go and do it, and that really helps. And you know, he's massively proud of what I've achieved as well. I mentioned Murray Walker, who was a great mentor in my early days in Formula One, and was the person that I phoned up the night before we announced the Sky lineup at the end of 2011. I phoned Murray up to tell him that I got the job, and he couldn't have been more thrilled and pleased for me, which was lovely, and that was like a vote of confidence for me, that as nervous as I was about making the move from radio to television and getting the Sky job, if Murray thought it was okay, it was going to be okay, you know. But you know, you pick up little tips from everyone. Everyone's always got great advice, whether they know it or not. You know, and don't be afraid to listen to people. You don't always have to take on board what they say. You might disagree, but listen and keep your mind open, and keep your mind open to change as well. Because we're always learning, we're always evolving, and there's always something new that we can learn.
And you know, speaking about, you know, your relationships, you and Martin Brundle are like the most iconic F1 duo I've ever seen, right? You have such a natural flow on air. And actually, you know, when I'm watching F1 with my family, when something happens on track, I'm not even joking, I predict what you guys are going to say word for word, and then Martin or you says it. It's absolutely insane.
That's in which case then we've done a lot of races together now, and if you can predict it. Martin once gave, and I love working with Martin. We get on very well. We have a laugh off air as well, and we've gone through now many years together, and we don't row and we don't have disagreements, and you know, if we want to air something, we air it in a really great way. And he without even knowing it at the time, gave me a brilliant piece of advice in my first year in 2006 in Formula One, when I said to him, we were sat having lunch, got invited by Williams for lunch, and it was the first time I'd really had a chance to talk to him. And I said, look, do you ever struggle like to find something to say when, you know, nothing's happening? Now, I'm on the radio, I talk about the weather, the crowd, you know, I can describe the cars. I'm painting pictures. But on TV, everyone can see what's happening. I said, so do you just struggle sometimes? He went, Crofty, he said, there's always something to talk about. And he's not wrong. And it was a brilliant piece of advice. And whenever I go into a commentary box, like a wet day in Spa, for instance, where we know we're not going to get much running, I now think back to Martin saying, there's always something to talk about. And that kind of just gives me the confidence that I will find something to talk about, even if there is nothing to talk about, to be honest. And the wet day in Spa is, you know, I remember that for many reasons. It was a complete farce of a race, to be honest. And I'm glad they changed the rules on points that are awarded afterwards. But I remember it because Martin got changed from his jeans and a shirt into his wet weather gear for his motorbike whilst talking on air, which was quite the feat. And at one stage, because we played in a little interview, both Martin and Anthony Davidson went and made themselves a cup of tea. And when we came back, they were still making a cup of tea. So I was now talking by myself with nothing to talk about. And trying to pause long enough to talk back to my producer to say, can you get them to come into the commentary box, please?
I think, honestly, that's one of your greatest skills, like for Suzuka last or 2 races ago, you know, when nothing's happening, you know, continuing to talk about something to keep the fans engaged.
But there is, if you know your subject, there is always something to talk about. And it's relaxing and realizing it's a conversation that we're having, that people are listening in and sometimes joining in with as well. But it is a conversation. So we've been talking now for a while, and we have barely even scratched the surface on many things that you would like to talk about.
Of course,
So there is always something to talk about.
That's true. And, you know, do you have anything to say about yourself before we move on to the next segment?
Do I have anything to say about myself? Do you know what? I'll let other people say things about me. That's fine.
All right, so for segment 3, it is the state of F1, and it is going to be about your thoughts on the sport now and in the future. So firstly, you know, we're here in Saudi Arabia. What are your thoughts about the Jeddah Corniche circuit?
I like the Jeddah Corniche circuit, and I think the drivers like it as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a circuit for the drivers
Yep.
because you have got to be brave.
Yep.
And you've got to be, like Monaco, with a bit more speed, you have got to be millimetre perfect through some of those turns. And I think it's given us some great moments of drama. Whether it is the best racetrack for overtaking, I'm not sure. But if you feel the need for speed, it's a very good place. And I think, we're going to have it for a while.
Yeah.
We're not going to go to Qiddiya, I would imagine, before 2029.
Yeah.
And I've seen that track. I've looked into it quite closely. I think that's an awesome circuit.
20 stories high, I think that's.
If that gets allowed, that's going to be magnificent. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think Alex Wirtz has done a super job on the track there. But for the time being, Jeddah Corniche, it gives the teams and the drivers a challenge. Wind changes from day to night. Sand blows in as well, which isn't ideal. And it's going to be massively hot this year because it will be the first time we've run it in April. So let's see what happens. But I know I like it.
Yeah.
I really do. And we get a really warm welcome in Saudi Arabia too, which is lovely to see from a lot of people of your age, young Formula One fans really getting into the sport. Yeah. That's fantastic to see.
Yeah. And, I think in my opinion, when it comes to F1 circuits with these new ground effect cars and where the aerodynamics are so prioritized, I think that when you have these high downforce circuits that you need the aerodynamics, I think that's what F1 is made for. Because when you think about it, any car can take a slow corner, right? But it's only an F1 car that can zoom past these fast, super tight corners, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the thrill of that, true. But any car can take a slow corner. Ask Aston Martin if they can take a slow corner well at the moment. They'll probably say no.
That's true. Yeah.
That is a lot of their problem.
Yeah.
To be fair, which is why they think they'll do better. And we're recording this on the Friday morning of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It's why they think that they'll do better here than they managed in Bahrain last time out.
I think so. I think they've got the Saudi support here.
They've got the Saudi support. Fernando Alonso likes it here as well, and a car that is better suited for this track.
Yep.
But I wouldn't expect anything too brilliant from a team that are clearly prioritising for 2026.
Yeah.
Having said that, if you're now watching this after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and Lance Stroll has been on the podium, ignore everything I've just said.
Okay, and speaking about the future in 2026, Cadillac is joining F1.
Yes.
Who do you think they're going to be eyeing for their 2 seats? Talks are about Sergio Perez.
I think they need an experienced driver.
Right.
I would take Valtteri Bottas over Sergio Perez. I think his driver feedback is better. I think he hasn't lost any of his racing ability. He just happened to be in a Sauber for the last couple of years, which wasn't allowing him to show that racing ability. He would be my front runner.
Right.
But commercial pressures always come into the fore, and Sergio will open up markets that Valtteri wouldn't necessarily do. So one of those two. And then take a young rookie, take a Colton Herta.
Yep.
Take a Pato O'Ward, who is a Mexican driver, but fits that North American driver that I think Cadillac want and need to make it a proper US team. They need a US driver.
And in this year, in terms of the championship and the forefront of the championship, do you think McLaren having essentially 2 number 1 drivers, as it seems, is a problem?
No,
No,
it's a great thing to have, isn't it?
Do you not think possibly might be a recreation of 2016 with Mercedes?
Yeah, who won the title that year?
Rosberg.
Yeah, but who won the title that year? Which team?
Mercedes.
So what's the problem?
Right, yeah, of course.
See, and this is the thing, when we get down to, you've got to have a number 1, you've got to have a number 2. Well, if you have the best car, and I think the McLaren is the best car, then you can afford to have a number 1, number 2. Only when you don't have the best car do you probably need to prioritise in order to win that driver's championship for the driver you're prioritising.
Right.
But it's a team sport. So the team championship, the Constructors' Championship, is the most important for the teams. And as long as McLaren win the Constructors' Championship, they get the most prize money that they can get.
Yeah.
In terms of the Drivers' Championship, what is wrong with giving both drivers equal opportunity?
Right.
You're not upsetting either one of them in doing so. So you're creating the perfect platform for the best teammate relationship for years to come.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say, but I think if you remember Hungary last year, there was so much backlash that McLaren got from their orders. And I really hope this year that they don't interfere with the racing. I think if it ends up in a crash, it ends up in a crash. But I think it would be worse if they controlled the race,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But the thing about Hungary was that Lando has been asked to give the place back.
That's true.
Because he was put on a preferred strategy to cover off the undercut.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Oscar's fault.
That's true.
That Lando was ahead.
No, I agree.
If Lando would have given the place back straight away, we wouldn't be talking about it today.
Yeah.
Maybe he was proving a point, I don't know, but he was far enough back
Yep.
so that you're not saying you're killing his chances of winning a championship
Yep.
because the team did what they did. And was there any lingering, bitterness between the drivers? No. Look what happened in Qatar as well, when Lando, off his own back, decided that, no, Oscar should be winning this, not me.
Yeah. And, in terms of Lewis in Ferrari this year, I think that is, the biggest story.
Yeah.
Do you think he will win a title with Ferrari?
Well, I'd like to see Lewis win a title with Ferrari.
Yep.
I really would. I'd like to see Lewis as an 8-time world champion. I don't think I'm alone in that. Whether he will, I don't know. Time is running out purely because of Lewis's age.
Yeah.
And Ferrari have made changes to their car already this year, but have a few more upgrades coming that they're going to need.
Right.
But things are looking better. But only when he's got the best car can he think about, going for wins week in, week out. And then he's got Charles Leclerc, who is a very capable and able driver, as his teammate, who also wants to win that title. So nothing should come easy in Formula One. It won't come easy for Lewis on this one. Jury's out a little bit for this year. Next year we change the rules and regs again. This might have been Lewis's best year, but I don't think he's got a car at the moment that can challenge for consistent wins.
I don't think so either. And the last question I have for this segment is, we have an exciting championship ahead of us. We have two drivers who we know are running for the championship. And I have to ask, who do you think has the edge?
Max Verstappen. Because don't count him out either.
No, of course.
As Japan proved, if he's on a track, where he goes well, where he can get the setup right, you don't count him out.
Yeah, definitely.
He could easily win this weekend in Jeddah.
I personally think he will win this weekend, because I think Jeddah is a circuit where you need that precision and skill, and we know he's amazing here. And Lando is known not to be good here. I mean, Piastri's out-qualified him, outraced him every time we've come here. And I think Verstappen will have the edge today, and on Sunday, and maybe throughout the season, but we'll know.
Well, there's your answer, Sammy. I'm not going to disagree with you on this one. I'll let you take all the flack on this one if it doesn't happen. Once again, if you're watching this after the Jeddah Grand Prix,
and Verstappen's crashed,
and Verstappen's crashed, and Esteban Ocon comes through to win, just disregard anything we've just said. But that's the beauty of what we do.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of live sport. We can all have theories and opinions, and then it goes out and it happens live in front of our eyes, and we really don't know what's going to come next. In hindsight, we can always say, yeah, I told you that was going to happen. But that's hindsight. Yeah. And in what I do and what I'm sure you want to do in your career, we haven't got that benefit of hindsight all the time. And that makes it exciting and fun. Yeah. And the best job in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now for the last segment, it is called Box, the rapid fire round. You need to...
So it's not a Red Bull pit stop then?
It's not a Red Bull pit stop.
Sorry, that was a low blow. That really was.
4.7 seconds and 6.4 seconds in Bahrain.
Not good.
Yeah.
Well remembered.
Yeah, it was like it's such a rare occurrence that that happens. Yeah.
Correct.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you questions. You need to say the first thing that comes in your mind. No,
Right.
no thinking whatsoever.
Well,
right?
that won't be hard. No thinking.
Favorite track to commentate.
Favorite Silverstone, always.
Favorite team radio moment.
Fernando is faster than you.
Honestly, I was thinking about this question and I thought the same thing. I think that's amazing.
And I was on. So stop the clock a minute. I was asking the unilateral questions that day in Germany as well. And so I raced from the commentary box, and it was in a studio at the time, not in Parc Fermé. And I'm interviewing the top three, and Felipe Massa is looking utterly forlorn in there because he knows that team orders have taken that race away from him. And if you remember, it was a coded message because at the time team orders weren't allowed.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping that in my commentary I got it absolutely right. And I saw one of the press officers as I was walking up the steps who went, "Good luck with this one, Crofty." So I'm like, right, okay, so I've definitely got it right. I definitely know what was going on. And looking at Felipe Massa off camera, oh man, was he heartbroken that day. And your heart went out to him. It really did.
Yep.
What a day. Anyway, start the clock again.
Most underrated driver.
Martin Brundle. Martin Brundle's career.
We're stopping the clock. We're stopping the clock
Stop
again.
the clock again. Was a lot of right place, wrong teammate, or right place, wrong time, or wrong place, right time. He is a much better driver than and he'll say 10 podiums, even though one of them doesn't count because they got disqualified that year. Will ever, they won't. It doesn't do him justice.
Yep.
Sports cars, he went and won in sports cars. As a champion in sports cars. Could have beaten Ayrton Senna in F3 as well. Still says he should have beaten Ayrton Senna in F3. But a hugely underrated driver. And the way he knows and understands and talks about Formula One, should give people a clue as to just how good Martin was.
Yeah, I think I regard him as a very good driver from what I've seen.
He's a total legend who just didn't get the break of a win.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the last thing you watched on Netflix?
Adolescence.
Okay.
It was the last thing I watched. And if you've not watched Adolescence yet, do. It's if nothing else, it is a stunning piece of drama, and the way it's filmed, it involves you hugely. But also the subject matter is massively important to discuss.
And your favorite meal after a long day?
Favorite meal after a long day?
Yeah.
Oh man. Do you know what? So favorite food, fish and chip Friday. I love fish and chip Friday. All right. We have fish and chip Friday at home all the time with the kids. It's kind of our little thing. I'm a big sushi fan as well. I do like a steak. As you can see, I like food. But I try not to have a big meal after a long day because that means I'm eating late at night.
Yeah. And now I'm going to have you describe a few drivers in one word, all right?
Oh, this will be good.
It's difficult. Lewis Hamilton.
Legend.
Max Verstappen.
Legend. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to describe Max and Lewis in one word.
Yeah.
Because in terms of their driving ability, I put them absolutely up there.
Yeah.
On a plinth, level pegging in their ability. Max, I think, is on form the best driver on the grid currently.
Yep.
I love the way Lewis has off track blossomed into a man who speaks out, says what's right, and is comfortable in doing that, and has changed attitudes and perceptions around the world, and in particular in the sport that he races in.
Yeah.
And I think Max is a different character with that in mind. I would hope one day that he does use his platform and his voice to speak out where he feels he needs to on that one.
Yeah.
But as drivers, they're both legends.
Charles Leclerc.
One word to describe Charles Leclerc. Oh, this is so tough. emotion. I always get emotion with Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
Win
I
or
agree.
lose.
All of his wins is emotional. I don't know
Yeah.
what I've
But
seen.
win or lose, there's
Yeah.
just something
Yeah.
emotional about Charles Leclerc. And
Yeah.
that's not a criticism in any way, shape, or form. He's also one of the nicest people
Yeah.
to spend any time with.
Yeah.
He's a top guy.
Lando Norris.
Lando Norris, unique.
Yeah.
Unique because Lando is a supremely talented driver, is a thoroughly honest and engaging young man
Yep.
who wears his heart on his sleeve and isn't afraid to address how he's feeling. So in that, I think makes him unique at all times.
Oscar Piastri.
Deadly.
Yeah.
Or crocodile, because he smiles and you know he's going to bite you at some stage.
Yeah.
And that's another compliment as well.
Yeah.
He is the silent, he is the silent talent. Actually, is another word for Oscar Piastri as well, horizontal, because he is so laid back and so chilled and so in control of every moment. And I've got a lot of time for Oscar.
And I think this might be the hardest question. Ted's notebook or Martin's grid walk?
Martin's grid walk at all times. And that is not to pour any scorn on Ted's notebook, which only Ted could do the notebook, to be honest, and go off on the tangents that he does. But I think he does it. Look, it's pressurized. It's live TV. But Martin's grid walk in the most ridiculous setting for any live TV program. Martin said to me, he came up into the commentary box in Bahrain after the grid walk, and he said, I said, well done, that was good, that. I said, chaos down there. He said, I forgot I had a cameraman at one stage. I said, you did? He said, yeah, 'cause I couldn't see him. He said, there were that many people there. I couldn't see the cameraman, but I trusted that he was filming me in some way, shape or form. Martin gets interviews that people wouldn't normally get, and he gets exchanges that people wouldn't normally get because he just catches people in the moment.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic piece of television.
Right.
And he's the only person that could do this the way it happens, because he just knows everybody and everything within the sport. And that comes out. And he's also not afraid to put a few one-liners in as well. Yeah. Which just, leave you howling a lot.
Yeah. And for the last question, I need you to not give any elaboration on this. It's very important, right?
Right.
So
that's hard for me.
Yep. So you've got Senna, Hamilton, Verstappen, Schumacher, Vettel, and Alonso, who are often regarded as the best. I mean, that's also debatable, but in my eyes, they are the best. You give them all brand new cars with a year to practice. What's the podium looking like?
With a year to practice?
Yeah.
Senna, Hamilton, Schumacher.
All right. All right. Thank you. And that is it in terms of the podcast. But there is one more thing I had a request. It is a personal dream of mine, and I think it's a bit late for me to get into F1 and to be a world champion. But is there a chance that you could commentate my name as if I won the world championship?
Well, I could possibly do that.
Driving for Ferrari.
Driving for Ferrari. Okay. So you're 15, right?
Yep.
So probably give it another 5 years, and then you could do it.
Let's say the youngest world champion.
The youngest world champion.
Yep.
Right, okay. So it'd be something like 3 more corners to go. Here in Abu Dhabi, the checkered flag awaits for a first Ferrari title in 20 years. They've waited an age. He's come of age. Your world champion as he crosses the line. It's Sammy. Is that right?
That was amazing. For the people watching, you need to know everyone in the studio, my parents, the producers, have gone absolutely wild. They're all recorded that. I think that was the best thing I've heard all year. That That was absolutely amazing. That
So
was
good, the lights even flickered on and off as well. Do you know what? I want you to get back go-karting now. I want to say this for real. Your mum is crying. Bless her heart. She'll be crying even more when she gets the bill for the go-kart.
She's so excited she broke something. All right.
That happens.
Yeah.
I've done that. I've got so excited. I've knocked things flying in the commentary box. It happens, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me.
Yeah, and I need your prediction for the Grand Prix this weekend.
For this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, man, because people are going to watch this after the weekend. They're going to go, Crofty knows nothing.
Yeah.
Oscar Piastri beats Lando Norris, beats Max Verstappen.
All right. Okay. I think I had that similar. And finally, for the conclusion, and there it is, the checkered flag on this very special episode of The Blueprint. From commentating some of the wildest moments in motorsport to becoming the voice that defines an entire generation of F1 fans, Crofty's story reminds us that passion and persistence are often louder than any engine on the grid. Whether you dream of the paddock, the press box, or just a job that gets your heart racing, there's a path and there's a blueprint. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, life doesn't always start from pole, but it's about how you take the first corner. I'll see you in the next episode.